So our last speaker is Klaus Spiess. Did I pronounce your last name correctly, Klaus?
Almost.
Almost, okay. He directs the Art and Science program at the Center of Public Health, the Medical University in Vienna, and is an associate professor, and he's published extensively in academic journals and exhibited his work at the Beale Center for Art and Technology and Pre-Arts Electronica, etc. So I'll let him talk about his work.
Okay, I try to share my screen. So thank you, Tammy, and thank you, Piero, to have our project Ecolalia here. It has been developed by myself and by Ulla Lauter, who is a voice and media artist at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, and by Emanuel Golob, who is an artificial intelligence artist at the University of Art and Design in Linz. It is a project which is funded by the Austrian Science Fund, arts-based research. I start with a short clip from the performance. So the artistic research questions in Ecolalia are, does our speech affect the growth of the oral microbiota? Does the oral microbiota affect our speech? And how might a future post-anthropocentric language be constructed? The 3 years project has a wide transdisciplinary background, and now after 1 year has only been partially implemented. Ecolalia derives from an early grotesque imagination by a Renaissance writer and physician Rabelais, who describes how pilgrims throw letters in the giant Gargantua's mouth. Humans and plants in Gargantua, phonemes and oral microbes in Ecolalia share the human mouth as ecological habitat. Ecolalia also roots in biopoetry. Poetry in general very early anticipated an awareness that language might function with no clear connection to its human source. Also, William Burroughs' dictum, "Language is a virus from outer space," calls that language never speaks alone. Ecolalia also relates to DNA poetry, where DNA was used for replicate letters. As example, to Eduardo Katz's Genesis or to Christian Böck's Xenotext. Ecolalia is politically critical in that it reflects on the simultaneous extinction of both languages and microbiota due to colonial mechanism and late capitalism. We have to remember that of the world's 7,000 languages, 50% have been disappeared since the 15th century. 50% more will disappear until 2100. The estimated extinction rate of 30 million biological species is 3% yearly. So 30% of biological species, but 90% of languages will be extinct by 2100. The simultaneous extinction of both language and species is rooted in the same biogeographic factors of neoliberal globalization with habitat destruction. A few of many are: microbes cannot use distant digital communication for their replication. Distant digital communication rather excludes non-English native speakers, and the inheritance of knowledge about biodiversity maintenance is more encoded in minor languages. Language extinction goes always along with phonetic extinction. 90% of the phonemes are lost from the age of a toddler to adulthood. 20% are lost due to the collision of phonemes in new Creole languages. 20% due to functional signal languages. Age, as example, was not considered necessary in many words. These losses require phonetic awareness training. Here's one of the few studies relating voice to capitalist environments. Mirroring, vocal convergence, psychotropic stimulation, exposure to accelerated speech in television and internet are proposed as key factors that influence our speech speed and contribute to phonetic loss. So what has been reflected so far in my talk, more from linguistics, is also happening as an effect of anthropogenic sounds and even music on the microbiota of animals and humans. especially on the growth and metabolism or antibiotic sensitivity of coli bacteria and yeasts. There's a growing number of studies about these effects, which you can see here. This sensitivity is reflected in the speaking human individual, whose salivary flow and salivary pH and oxygenation by respiration changes during speech. For example, overnight, up to 30% of the species in the mouse have changed from aerobic to anaerobic due to decreased respiration. Of great interest to Ecolalia is a unique study by Ban Jin. This key study attempts to prove that people perform their religious rituals because the microbes that want to multiply drive people to seek meetings. Ecolalia hypothesizes that the oral microbiota for its replication drives us to use different phonemes when we speak. Ecolalia invites to reflect about a future language which considers the human microbiota as part of a constructed biolanguage. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis of linguistic relativity is a principle suggesting that the structure of a language affects its speaker's worldview and cognition. If it overcomes that Western natural languages so far are better suited for expressing the needs of humans than of non-humans, such a constructed biolanguage might not use the anthropocentric I and no terms functionalizing animals like milk cow or drumsticks, and include more unambiguous statements that include how one feels about one is, saying and excluding substantives and preferring verbs. Considering such diverse backgrounds, we have been creating Ecolalia, a neologism which departs from several points. Eco is a nymphet able to repeat one word only. Ecolalia is a psychotic condition, a drive of repeating words meaninglessly. By moving forward from meaning to meaningless repetition, from ecolalia to ecolalia, in repetitively using unknown phonemes, ecolalia not only transgresses the difference between speaking and growling, which marks the anthropocentric boundary between human and non-human beings, but provokes subtle biochemical changes of pH and breath by different phonemes, the changes which we actually use in our performances. Our performer's speech was transformed into a disarticulated assemblage of non-human needs, forces, thresholds, and intensities. Along Atto and Deleuze, it became a voice without a subject. To develop our performance, we first had to collect biological data and expose Saccharomyces eukaryotes as part of the oral microbiome to the tonal and noisy parts of the human voice. We found in our laboratory experiments that our strains of oral Saccharomyces use tonal parts of the human voice. In short, these are timbral or vocal parts which are strengthened by singing having no semantic meaning to grow by strengthening the cytoskeleton. Saccharomyces used noisy parts of the human voice, which are consonants, which are strengthened by whispering and which have semantic meaning to apoptotically degrow by oxidative stress. We also found that the microbiota uses breath oxygen and saliva pH to switch between asexual and sexual replication. In general, any stronger deviation in pH and oxygen leads to stress and to shift in sexual replication. I don't have the results here on screen. So the questions for our project were, if speakers want to speak along the oral microbes replication, to grow or degrow or balance the oral microbiota, should speakers sing or whisper their words, use some phonemes and others not? Is phonological sequencing, alertness, perception, etc. in speaking ecologically relevant? For our live performance, we programmed the relationship between the whispering and singing and the different phonemes which were used by the performer with the biological data from our lab. During the performance, we used only the optical density as an indicator of growth and as a real-time input to the system. To propose certain phonemes to be spoken, Emmanuel, our artificial intelligence artist, used two deep learning neural networks. One network was engaged at the phonetic level using the International Phonetic Alphabet.
A, E, O,
From each microscopic image, Emmanuel used a minimum of 512 directions where to the image can develop, and we mapped this space with the balancing between growing and dying of the Saccharomyces. So the cellular balance then drives a synthetic voice articulator, which is of special interest because it operates by anatomical variations of lips, tongue, and palate during speech, touching the area where the respective species lives. So finally, cell biology, phonetics, and deep learning are combined in an apparatus such that an articulatory voice synthesizer can suggest those phonemes that mutually protect the oral microbiota and phonemes from extinction. The audience was invited to balance growth and death of the microbiota harvested during the performance by repeating their phonemes. Okay, thank you.
Very good, very interesting.
Thank you. For questions.
And this was obviously a big project. Do you see the possibility of reusing what you developed for other kind of applications in other fields?
Yeah, the question is which field? I mean, it's of course the question. I mean, we are in the first step of a 3 years project. So the question is, I mean, and this is a serious question, to invite people to use another language to keep their oral microbiota in balance. And I mean, all these new languages are, of course, confronted with a certain challenge, in which way they are able to communicate also in a conventional sense, and with whom they should, the language is designed to communicate. I mean, normally the communication is between the same species, and this would be a language which is which aims at the communication with another species, and even a species which are not very, you're not very conscious, I think, that it even exists in your mouth.
Right. Very interesting.
Any other questions?
Yes. Oh, sorry, Krista.
Krista, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just, thanks, Klaus, for your lecture. I just, could you detail a little bit what happens during the night? Because you said during the night, the species in your mouth, they are changing, or they are like the biota, the organisms are changing during the night?
It switches from more aerobic to anaerobic species, because the ventilation breath during night is much less. So certain species, the anaerobic species, are growing and the other ones are dying. So there are some studies which prove that there is a switch in 30% of the species overnight.
And why is that so? Or what is this good for? There must be some kind of function for this, no? Or some kind of health function for the humans?
Yeah, actually, I don't know what the... I mean, it's not only in the mouth. I think this is in general in any soil or wherever, that the species which within a short time from a species which finds conditions where it can survive, and yeah, I mean, microbes are continually looking for environmental conditions where they can survive in an optimized way.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question also regarding the fact that those last years we wore masks because of COVID. And of course, it's blocking yes, with this connection of the interior of our mouth with the
This is
stereo. Do you have any could you see some changes in the in our oral micro?
No, actually, I did.
Do you see a change or not at all?
No, what is interesting is, I mean, of course, the replication or the exchange was reduced because due to the mask, and so from my opinion, also a certain stimulation of the immune system was reduced. Not what is actually unhealthy in some way. because the immune system is anyway the best way to resist any kind of infection. So this had to wear mask has two sides actually.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yes, you mentioned you're looking for other voices and other people from other languages, or is that you said, or did I get it wrong?
No, not. I mean, of course, from a phonetical perspective, it's much important which language is used for a certain project and which kind of phonemes you are investigating. This actually we are switching between German and English, but we don't. We are not in. We have no possibility or not to research other languages now at this time of the project.
Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today.
Thank you too.
Very interesting work.